Y'all dealing with the king. If you wanna come and get it, let the outlaw get you out your seats. You want sports talk, politics? He don't give a shit. Everyone says speak, follow it. About to issue y'all a masterclass. You wanna pass? Gunslinging the new podcast, eat candy ass. Grab a top bench, get information. It's your boy John Roker. Welcome to the Outlaw Nation.
All right, welcome everybody to this week's The Outlaw Nation podcast. Hi, I'm your host, John Roca, a.k.a. The Outlaw. Here on a bright morning, I'm not going to tell you what day I'm recording this, but, this is my life. Constantly busy, constantly doing things, and I'm recording this early in the morning, so if I sound like I'm groggy, give me a break, for God's sakes. You know, I'm doing a lot of things. You guys know, you guys who follow me on social media, at The Roca Says, you know I do a lot of things, got a lot of projects going on, just trying to stay active. And hit the big one. That's kind of the goal in life. So I hope you all are doing well. Hope you had a great week. I'm still recovering from Comic-Con. What an insane experience that was. I'll talk about it in just a second. But first, let's talk about the fact that this show comes to you on the Schmoes Know Plus podcast channel. That's the SK Plus podcast channel. Sponsored by my boys, Christian Harloff and Mark Ellis. Such awesome guys who give me a platform to talk about my world, my life, my points of views, interact with you all about the numerous subjects I cover on all my shows on the Outlaw Nation podcast. But I'm not the only show on the network. There's also Wangers, the Wangers Show, which I'm just begging Cobster and Cody to get me on, and Beardo. And speaking of Beardo, there's also Don't Be a Beardo. He's got an awesome podcast where he interviews people. If you guys have heard my podcast on there, my episode, I was 2.5 hours. The son of a bitch made me cry, the bastard. And then there's the After Schmoedown Rundown, or the Schmoedown Rundown, rather, and the After Schmo Show. And, of course, 2 weeks in, the Top 10 show. Back in all its full glory. As a lot of you preferred the show, which is no limits, tangent full, and talking about all kinds of movies and all kinds of thoughts that we have about these movies and about each other's lives and the experiences that these movies kind of trigger in us and the paths they lead us down, and not having a worry about what we talk about. So there you go. Please download and subscribe all those shows and leave them comments, ratings, all the things you're supposed to do to keep it popular. And yes, as you can tell, I'm in my car again. This is my life. This is what I do. A lot of you had a great response to the episode last week where I went down with Mike Kalinowski, the killer from the movie Trivia Schmoedown, Shannon McClung, one of my great friends for years, and of course one of my best friends ever, Michael Vogel, who is the EP of the My Little Pony movie that's coming out in October. Sorry, he also ran the panel while we were down there. So it was awesome to see him in full glory running things down there, and it was a very enjoyable panel. For a guy who only watches the My Little Pony show occasionally, because, it's not really my thing, but I support my friends and the things that they do, it was awesome to be in that panel and experience it. So it was a lot of fun. So speaking of Comic-Con, let's get into it. What an incredible fun experience this time was. For the most part, I will say, I wrote an article on the trackingboard.com. By the way, if you guys don't know this, I am now a columnist officially at the Tracking Board, working under Jeff Snyder. It's tracking-board.com, and you can see my columns there. I recently wrote one on Tuesday about how I felt Comic-Con, from the San Diego version at least, has hit the saturation point because of so many Comic-Cons that are coming and are currently happening and are building and growing, like New York City, Salt Lake, Emerald City, all those, and the little local Comic-Cons that happen every weekend in like Tampa and I think Portland and numerous other cities. How the studios don't feel the pressure to bring their greatest stuff all the time. And one of the examples I used was the Fox panel where they just talked about Kingsman, but they didn't get into Deadpool 2. They didn't get into New Mutants. So all of that. So if you want to read my article, go there to tracking-board.com, and you can read that article and the column and the other columns I've written. So Yeah, so like I said, Comic-Con was an awesome experience. We got there on Wednesday, like we normally do. We hung out. We kind of detoxed a little bit from the ride. I went downstairs, had some dinner and drinks, hung out, and started planning out our con, how we're going to get to see the things that we want to see. And the big deal was getting to Hall H. Hall H was the huge deal that we always like to go to every Saturday. This year it was Warner Brothers DC in the morning. Then it was a couple of panels in the middle. One was an awesome panel called Women Who Kick Ass, where they interviewed Charlize Theron. And the other panel was Stranger Things. And then we got into Marvel stuff. So it was an awesome experience on Saturday. The con itself was kind of... There were a lot of things you could do. There was something like the Blade Runner experience, which was an outdoor area where you could actually walk into what a simulated downtown city that you see in like the Blade Runner movies. Like they had the same people who were dressed as the people were back in the Blade Runner movie, the same kind of ambient like fog and the same kind of like lights and the feelings, all of that was there. And you could do it as a VR experience or you could do it as a regular experience. So those were the kinds of things. And they had a Game of Thrones offsite experience where you could sit on the Iron Throne. You could sit on the throne from Dragonstone and from Castle Dragonstone. And also you could, there was another offsite experience. It was Westworld, and that was coming out of at the Bayfront Hilton. Every morning at 9 a.m., they were taking people to the Westworld experience. So just like you saw on the show, you were taken like on a train, or you were taken to like a train, and you get to experience the Westworld show the way they do in the TV show, the Westworld experience rather, like they do in the TV show. So that was cool. That was cool stuff. Thursday was fun, in terms of the getting into see the Kingsman stuff, getting in there to see a number of things, and then getting to cover it, so you can see Mark Riley and I covering it for Collider. And then I just, walked around the floor and took it in a little bit and had some fun with that, and spent a couple hours with my friend Mike Fox, who's a writer, animation writer. We just kind of walked the floor, saw what was happening, saw the Artist Alley, and of course, T-shirts. We Love Fine is an awesome T-shirt company. I love buying T-shirts from. Style and Byland, they have 3 huge stands there where you can go take a look at all that kind of stuff. And I got to see the Marvel, setup, the DC setup, the Konami setup. There's so many great setups that you were able to, and booths that you were able to kind of walk through and see the latest of the Star Wars one was awesome. And so there were so many that were there that were set up to enjoy. But there was a surprisingly, how can you say this? There was surprisingly less comic book presence than there ever has been. It was so limited this time around. I like to venture out to the farther edges of the Comic-Con floor, the exhibition floor, to kind of take in the comic book retailers and see what they're selling, see the prices of their stuff, maybe find myself a few bargains for graphic novels that I hadn't read, or compilations, books of titles that I would like to read. I love when they compile, like Brian Michael Bendis' run on Daredevil. I love that compilation, to read all that all together. Those kinds of things I like to venture out there, but there wasn't that many comic book stands like there were in years past. And that worried me a little bit. Like I was just like, this is called Comic-Con. It's supposed to be about, at least there's supposed to be a very strong foundation of comic book stuff, but I guess what they're focusing more on in the con is the comic book superhero films and the comic book films and what have you. So you're not going to get as strong of a comic book presence as you would like, unfortunately. So that was one of the experiences that I had. But there's so many interesting booths there. For those of you who've never gone, there's like a Luchador Libre booth. There's like a new merchandise booth. There's new people come up and create clothing for their smaller lines of comic book characters or characters in their books. There's fantasy novels that you can get. There's all kinds of stuff that's available there to take a look at and experience. And if you're open to all different kinds of media and different kinds of titles and what have you, it's all there for you to enjoy and experience. And so that's one of the positives about going to Comic-Con, is that you can actually like expose yourself to so many things that you may not have had an experience doing before. And then on Friday, we did our standard thing of going to the Broken Yoke for breakfast. That's kind of our tradition, to try to go to Broken Yoke a few times. while we're down there for breakfast. They have great multigrain pancakes. But the thing is, with Comic-Con also, a lot of these places, they have very limited menus. So you're only going to get certain choices because they would just go insane trying to serve everything to everybody because, as you can probably imagine, these places get pretty inundated with customers and with requests and changes and all that kind of stuff. So, nerds aren't actually not known for, having a lot of food allergies, a lot of stuff that they have to monitor. So I think restaurants would be going insane with the amount of people that are down at Comic-Con, like coming into their restaurants and requesting changes and requesting differences and requesting these kinds of things. So you experience that. So it's great. And then on Friday, like I said, we got the breakfast and we rolled into the con. We got to see Michael moderate his panel for My Little Pony, which is really cool, actually. Like, the people who love My Little Pony are really they love this thing. They're big fans of it, and they understand what kind of show it is. But the show itself is not just necessarily for kids. There's a lot of adult themes, adult jokes that are slid in there real subtly by the writers, and I know a few of the writers as friends, and they, it's really funny to see the jokes that they slide in and the social commentary that they slide in, and it's all for the positive message that friendship is important in life and that you have to accept people for who they are, and it's not always easy to do that, but it's certainly important to do that. So I love that about the show. And then, the rest of the time we hung out on the floor for a little bit again. Kind of got to see some more stuff and experience some more of the madness that is the con. Because on Fridays and Saturdays is really where it gets insane, and a majority of the people who've got tickets for the con show up and spend time on the floor. So it can really exhaust you. If you don't pace yourself, you can be absolutely burnt out by 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So you have to be aware of this. Are the things you learn as a Comic-Con attendee, is that you learn how to pace yourself. You learn when to have your bursts of speed, bursts of seeing everything, and you don't get too lost in trying to do everything in one day or in one night. That you'll kill yourself doing that. So then we had, we hung out, got some, went to the Gentle Giant party that night, which was really fun with friends. And got to talk to Tim Sheridan, who's one of the writers on Justice League Action. Tim is an awesome friend of mine from Florida State, another Seminole, right? Him and Ted Biaselli, got to run into Ted Biaselli from Netflix, who had been at Hasbro. Awesome guy as well. So got to talk a little bit about their show Justice League Action and what's going on with it, and how they came up with all the ideas for the show, and that was a lot of fun. And that's another part of Comic-Con is networking. You're meeting people, you're having conversations, and the intention is not necessarily to go there to be like, give me a job. The intention there is more like to just catch up with people and hear what they're doing, because we're all just trying to stay alive and get the next job and get the next thing. And so what you do when you're networking down there is more about just connecting with people and talking to people and seeing where they're at, seeing where you're at, seeing if maybe what you would like to have happen and what they need might coincide, either currently or in the future. So it's always good to network, and some people aren't good at it. I've discovered that some of my friends or some of the people I know really have a hard time networking. It's just not in their blood. But as you can tell, the fact that I'm on numerous shows and the fact that I go on as a guest on other shows, I don't have any problem talking to people or with people. But what the big thing that I skipped over, and I should go back and talk about, is my stand-up. Yes, I finally did it. That night that I drove down. So here's the insanity of the situation. So let's break it down. Mark Ellis reaches out to me. He says, "Hey, I've got a slot here at the con. It's a schmo. It's probably going to be a schmoes no friendly crowd. Would you like to come down and do a set?" Now, this was a couple of days before the Schmoes No show. Some of you know I went on there with Matt to announce the Top 10 show, and then Ellis dropped this bomb that, "Hey, do you want to come on and do a set?" And of course, that was me agreeing to it publicly, which was scary as hell. Because I'd never done stand-up in my entire life, but I'd always talked about it with a number of people, and I'd studied stand-up, like not just listening to the, Eddie Murphy stuff. Like I grew up on Delirious. I grew up on his old school stuff. I grew up on a lot of the Richard Pryor stuff. David Brenner was a comic I loved out of Philadelphia. Stephen Wright. All these great comics. Of course, Sam Kinison. George Carlin, Bob Newhart, even Woody Allen's early stand-up. Like, all these things influenced me to enjoy stand-up. And of course, I think I mentioned Richard Pryor already, and Bill Cosby. I know, I know there's his personal stuff. He's, obviously all the things he's done is pretty terrible. So, but like at that time, back when I was younger, those were the people that I was listening to for stand-up, and I really enjoyed their ability to make people laugh and talk about the world and their points of views. And then, I watched all the documentaries. I've seen every one of that episodes of that show that was on Showtime. I think it was called Inside Comedy, where one of these stand-up comedians was interviewing, these older stand-up comedians was interviewing all these people in comedy. I've seen Comedian, the Jerry Seinfeld documentary, like numerous times. So to me, I saw the female documentary. I saw the documentary they did on the female comedians that Whoopi Goldberg produced, I believe. So I've seen a number of, and Joan Rivers did rather. I've seen a number of documentaries and been into stand-up for quite some time. And I even dated a couple of female stand-ups over the last 10, 15 years. But I, enjoyed watching and going to shows and seeing how they did it and work the crowds. And so I've always wanted to do it, and there have been moments where I've reached out to my stand-up friends and say, hey, can you help me? I want to concoct or craft a set. And of course, Matt Nost, who was a stand-up for years, is someone I've talked to about stand-up as well. And so the opportunity presented itself, and Ellis was like, just write some pages, just freeform write about the world, about your points of views on life and your experiences in the world and what's going on with you. And he suggested I do all of that as a way of into creating jokes for the stand-up. And so I wrote like 4 pages of freeform writing as a Word document. And I sent it to him, and it was interesting to write, because people, stand-ups talk about it all the time. It's like writing jokes, you got to write all the time, write. And with starting being this columnist thing, I've been kind of getting into the rhythm of writing, which is not easy. It's not easy to make yourself write. So because you want to be inspired, you want to be caught up with that inspiration thing, but it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes you just have to do it. And so with this, I had to just do it and started writing and just... and it got really personal about, my dating life, about my views on the world, those kinds of things. And so I went down to San Diego, and I'd sent the stuff to Ellis, but Ellis was like, "I'll take a look at it and I'll send you some jokes, or I'll find the jokes in your material," is what he said. So he read it when he got to San Diego. So I'm already worried that I'm not gonna I don't have any jokes. I've just written 4 pages of free form. But I'm the kind of guy that's like, well, sometimes I'm just, as scared as I am about stuff, sometimes I'm just fuck it, and I just jump in with 2 feet and see what happens. I'm very much about experiencing life. I'm not so much about sitting on the sidelines for the most part. For better or worse. I may fail, I may succeed, but I still like the experience of it all. The results are almost irrelevant to me. It's more about the experience and what I learn. Nelson Mandela said, "I never lose. I either win or learn." And that's a great quote, and I kind of I've embraced that more as I get older, and especially as I kind of explore this podcasting and hosting and being a part of this side of the business. I've just kind of put myself out there and taken chances for better or worse, and so this is another chance to do that. And it kind of worked out in the way that it was supposed to work out. And Ellis we met at a bar, and before the show had a drink. Mark and I talked about, he looked at the stand-up, and he sent me a 2.5-minute voicemail message highlighting where I could make jokes, like where the jokes are in my material. And he thought there was enough there to do at least 5 minutes, and that's what we had estimated they would give me, 5 minutes. So we take an Uber over. On the Uber over, he's reinforcing some of the areas of the jokes and kind of going over it and throwing me some one-liners that I could throw in there that are really funny. And he's just a master comedian. I mean, Mark is just so funny and so comfortable and so relaxed. And he just does great work. It's just fantastic work. And to watch him kind of concoct things and put it together and get it to where it was supposed to be, I was just marveling at his ability to do that. And I was really enjoying his ability to do that. And I took some of his suggestions and put them in motion and had them written down as notes on my iPhone. And I was able to do that. which was a lot of fun. And then we rode over there, and we're sitting in the green room waiting to go on. And they tell me I have 10 minutes. And I was like, well, or I have 5 minutes rather. And I was like, oh, okay. But then I see the block is like a 10-minute block. So immediately I'm like, wait, do I have 5 minutes or 10 minutes? Like, I don't have 10 minutes of material, for God's sakes. So I got in there, and Ellis was calming me down and just talking about it, because I started to feel like I wanted to throw up. Like, I was super nervous. I didn't know how I would do. I didn't know once I got up on the stage what would happen. And to Ellis's credit, he's like, dude, if you want to pull out even a minute before you're about to do your set, I will absolutely understand, and I will take your minutes and just do an extra long set, because he was scheduled to be about 15 minutes. And and I said, I appreciate that, but I think I gotta do this. Like, I got this far, I came this far, I might as well do it. So I got in there, I watched the comic before me. He was really cool. Like, we got to talk a little bit in the green room before I went in there. And I got to watch his set a little bit, and I got to see how he constructed his stuff. And he's very reminiscent of what I imagine Matt Nost's stand-up would be like, his style, And so it was fun to watch that. And then he introduced me, and it was like, okay, here we go. And I ran, and the whole time I'm running up there, I'm like, here we go, fuck it, here we go. I just immediately, and Danny Fernandez was so sweet to send me some tips on what to do once I got on stage, move the mic stand out of the way, kind of connect with the audience, and just start. And that's what happened, And I got up there, and I just felt like I was talking in front of people that I knew or that were friends of mine. So it you have to prepare yourself with the right mindset when you do stuff like that. And I felt like I had done that before I even said one word, or before I even said one joke. And so that was kind of my approach to it. And then I just started going and talking about my dating life, my sex life, working at Harry Potter, talking about being a voiceover actor, just kind of flowed. I felt like I had them in the beginning, and for the most part in the beginning, for the first few minutes of the beginning, but then eventually I lost it a little bit in the middle, because I wasn't looking at my notes. I was like resolved to not look at my notes. I said, I'm not going to do that unless I absolutely have to, and I didn't. And I got lost a little bit in the middle because I didn't look at my notes, and I lost the jokes a little bit, but I was still able to like kind of joke about a couple of things that were about my voiceover, and got some laughs, a couple of laughs, nothing too crazy. And then eventually I found my way back to kind of put a button on the set. And just as I did, the red light went on, and the red light comes on in the back when you're doing stand-up, and the red light tells you that you have about a minute before you have to wrap up. Now, I didn't know that at the time. I'd always heard and seen, especially like I mentioned in the documentaries and people talking about when they do their stand-ups, that the red light means you got to get off, like you're done, you got to get off the stage. So I thought it was immediate. Like I thought I had to finish immediately and get off the stage and introduce Mark. And Mark had given me all these tips on how to introduce him, and so I was focused more on doing that than I was on finishing out a minute or getting. So I just was like, okay, that's it. Okay, thanks. And it just seemed to end at the right time. I introduced Mark. He comes back and he tells me that he recorded my set. I had no idea that after he'd done his 15 minutes, he comes back and he tells me, hey, I recorded your set if you want it. And I was like, what? And he said, you went 7 minutes. And I was shocked, because I thought when the red light came on that I had only done 3 minutes. I thought they were taking me off the stage early because they had felt that like I wasn't 100% there. So I thought when I lost it, I meandered a little bit. I thought that they were cutting me off early at 3 minutes. So when he told me I did 7 minutes, I was shocked, just absolutely shocked. And so it was a great feeling. It was a great experience to know that I did 7 minutes, thinking that I had done 3, or thinking that I only had 5 minutes of material. But when I came off the stage, I was so jazzed, getting the laughs and genuine laughs. I know it was a Schmoes No Friendly crowd, and anybody who's listening to this who went, thank you so much for going. Like, it really meant a lot for you guys to be there and laugh at the jokes. But I got bit. Like, I got totally bit by the bug. And so I am absolutely going to do this again. I'm going to do some open mics around LA and wherever around the surrounding cities of Los Angeles and try to like kind of see how this is and see if I can construct some sets and do like a 3-minute set, a 5-minute set, a 10-minute set, a 7-minute set, you know, a 15-minute set at some point maybe. Just feeling that I can do this. And I kind of was like, Ellis was so great because Ellis like got me a couple beers to calm me down afterwards, and he just was like, "What do you think, man? What do you think?" And I just told him how like, fuck you for putting another thing into my life that I want to do, and that I'll probably have to go on frustrating roads about to try to complete and be good at. So I got bit by the bug, man. So we'll see what happens. And so it was a great overall experience, and I'll absolutely, like I said, I'll absolutely do it again, and I will let you all know through my social media if you want to, and if you're in the areas that I'm in to come and watch me do some stand up, because I just like it. It's a lot of fun. So we'll see. Yeah, and then the next day, on Thursday, we got to do Collider Movie Talk, which was awesome. That was so much fun to go and do the Collider Movie Talk with you all. And, you know, they brought us out in twos at the American Comedy Theater. It was so great to sit there with Ken and Mark and look out and talk to people, to you all, like face-to-face, you know, because a lot of times we're just talking to the camera, and we hope you guys are listening on the other side or watching on the other side of the camera. So to be able to sit there in the room and talk with you all and have conversations and have fun back and forth and get asked questions about things. It was so much fun. And thanks to any of you who are listening who came out. That was so much. And we all talked about it afterwards, like just how much we enjoyed feeling the energy from the fans, feeling the vibe of the fans and the love, you know, and having them laugh at the things we were talking about and having them get into and know like the things that we bring up on Movie Talk all the time, having the ball busting going on that goes on between all of us. And so thanks to everyone who came out to that. I can't tell you how much we appreciated it. And it means a lot, you know, no matter how many followers or fans we have, it means a lot to connect with you all. And speaking of which, there was a meet and greet, which unfortunately I was only able to go for 30 minutes. And I got to meet a few people. I got to meet a couple of veterans, which was awesome. I want to thank them for coming to meet me. Two large African-American gentlemen. One of them gave me this fantastic pin, which I'm really honored by. And I got to talk to them. It was him and his brother. They were flying in. They'd flown in, rather, for the Comic-Con and to meet us. And one of them, of course, had a massive crush on Perry. I don't want to expose him, but he had a massive crush on Perry. So I introduced him to Perry. And he was, like, all overwhelmed. And we had to calm him down because, I warned him. I said, don't talk too much. Be chill. Be relaxed. And he got a little too ahead of himself in terms of his conversation. We had to rein him back in, and it was me and his brother, and it was a lot of fun. And I got to meet some of you all and take some pictures with you all, but I was super bummed to have to leave because we had this dinner. David Griffin and I had this dinner with Mark Fernandez and a couple other people, a business dinner that we had to go to that was scheduled for that time, and we could not move it. So I was super bummed because I really enjoyed the 30 minutes that I was there meeting all the fans and meeting you all and hearing you all's thoughts and taking pictures with you all and hearing the nice words and compliments that you all give me about Outlaw Nation, about the Cinephiles, about Movie Talk, about all the shows I do, about the Top 10 coming back. There's just so much love from you guys, so I really appreciated that. And throughout the con, to be honest with you, there was a number of people who came up and told me how much they loved the show and told me how much they enjoyed listening to me talking about my world, about my life, and of course listening to the Top 10 show and the Cinephiles. Steve and I breaking down a film every week. There was so much love, and the whole con, and people were stopping me all the time taking pictures, and I can't remember everybody's names, but I really appreciated it. And there was even one where I was walking with a friend of mine, and she saw this guy, was like, "Oh my God, Roca, my wife's gonna go insane. She went off to this other panel, and she's coming back in a few minutes. But like, I'm here with my kid. Like, I went crazy when you won the title, and I woke our new baby up, and she's gonna be crazy." And then while we were taking the picture, his wife showed up, and she was with their child and in the Bjorn, and she was so gracious and very happy to meet me. And so all those things are awesome experiences. Honestly, it's just icing on the cake for doing this job, and it's doing this career, and it's so much fun to to hear that people listen to us and are entertained by us. That's just a fascinatingly humble thing, and I really just can't tell you how much I enjoyed meeting all of you, every single person who stopped me, even the ones I was ball busting, the ones I was having fun with, the ones who were really gracious about their words about the show, especially in Hall H. There were a number of people on Saturday when I went to Hall H who were very complimentary about my shows and about me. And so and a couple of them told me that, like, the words when I talked about my struggles with depression and suicide and the mental health stuff, like, it really affected them and kind of helped them through. And I get your messages, which are so amazing that you guys send every week. There's an extra special weight to talking to someone in person about it. And I really appreciated everyone who was courageous enough to talk to me about it and bold enough to talk about their struggles with me. Like, I really appreciated that honesty. So thank you for that. And so Saturday, Hall H was insane, just insane. Warner Brothers stuff, the Justice League stuff was intense. I'll get to that in just a second. But like Ready Player One with Steven Spielberg, that looks so exciting. It was so great to hear Steven Spielberg talk about it, and the author was there to talk with some of the cast members are there to talk about it. And then they showed the footage, and you had all this incredible nerd stuff slamming into each other. Iron Giant, Tron, the Orcs. You had the Suicide Squad people that were in the trailer. Like, there was so much of that trailer that I really thoroughly enjoyed, and I think they dropped it like within 20 minutes after it premiered at the panel. And then we moved into the Blade Runner stuff, which was super awesome. Like, they explained how we got to 2049 from where we were in Blade Runner back in the 80s, like what the time was. They explained how we got to 2049. It was so amazing. The experience in the Warner Brothers panel, they used the entire auditorium, like from left all the way to the front, all the way to the right. So it was like a semicircle of video screens. You could not look to your left or right and not see some video screen that was showing something. So that was awesome. And especially with the Blade Runner stuff, because Jared Leto showed up in a hologram image and introduced the film, the panel, and then he disappeared and Hardwick showed up. It was a great Hardwick is just a fantastic moderator, Chris Hardwick, and he moderated the panel with Harrison Ford and with Ryan Gosling and with Denis Villeneuve, all these incredible people involved, and then they showed the new footage, they showed extra footage. I can't wait for Blade Runner 2049. It just looks so intense. And then afterwards, there was the Women Who Kick Ass panel. Then the Justice League stuff happened. So, and Jason Momoa came out through the audience with a trident. That was so incredible. Just right through the audience with a trident, doing his thing, and slammed the trident into the middle of the stage, which was so awesome. And then they showed Aquaman footage. So that was super cool to see the Aquaman stuff. And it was this short, like 1 minute teaser, but it was enough, or a minute and a half teaser, but it was enough to get you excited about what James Wan is doing with Aquaman. He introduced it, and then they showed, the footage they had was these two guys like fishing, and then they catch something. I think they're Dutch or Norwegian, or I can't remember what the language was that they were. They catch this what they think is this large fish, and then the fish starts to drag the boat through the ocean, and they eventually have to let go of the fishing pole before it drags the boat underneath. And as the camera pans up, you see these massive ships under the water just going underneath the boat, just with lights and incredible images and designs. And then we go under the water and see all the ships there in the water, and just fascinating stuff. And later, Jason Momoa said that that's Ocean Master's army, who Patrick Wilson is playing. And I think they have he's the main villain in the movie with Black Manta, I think. So it was really intense. And then you saw him, I think it was a red sword that Momoa had and was swinging around in the trailer, or in the teaser footage rather. So it was fun to see his version. I think his version of Aquaman is going to steal the Justice League movie. I think he's going to steal everything. He's so far, for me, he's been the best part of the Justice League trailers. So it's great. And so then they brought out, Gal Gadot, who came right through us, like right past us, with Ray Fisher, and then of course, Ezra Klein, and then Ben Affleck. They all came out and sat on the stage, and Gal ran that panel. Oh, my God. Like, you can tell she has come into her power as Diana Prince, as Wonder Woman. She is absolutely the person who is in charge of the Justice League, and you can tell she really commanded the panel while she was there, answering the questions for the most part first, kind of guiding them. And of course, the boys were acting like boys in terms of Ray Fisher and Ezra. They were acting like a couple of fraternity kids, which was a lot of fun. And Momoa was like throwing chairs after the Justice League trailer aired, and Ben Affleck is just he seemed like really happy. And of course, he pushed back and said, like, I'm going to be Batman. My plan to be Batman. I will be an ape on the ground for Matt Reeves, which, of course, is an allusion to the fact that he's directed the last 2 Apes films. So to me, it seemed like what he was saying was politically the right thing to say, which was, I am going to stay on as Batman as long as they want me, and that I'm looking forward to working with Matt Reeves. Justice League, the Warner Brothers DC panel announced through montages that Shazam, Flashpoint, Green Lantern Corps, Batgirl were all coming to. They announced them as films that they're going to be doing. Flashpoint is the one that a lot of people were focused on because they think that may be the out that Ben Affleck uses to get out of being Batman, and that they can bring in a new Batman. I don't know if it'll be Thomas Wayne, but that's certainly possible that they can bring in another Batman from another Earth or another dimension, and make that person Batman in our dimension, in our Earth, and replace Affleck. That's certainly possible. So we'll see if that's the graceful exit that they give him, because these reports from The Hollywood Reporter and various other news outlets. Yes, I know people want to push back, DC fans want to push back, but most of the times they're not wrong about these reports. They just get ahead of themselves, and they have to figure out how to do this. And so I'm sure they want to respect Ben Affleck and what he did coming out of Batman vs Superman, because a lot of people felt that he was a great Batman, including me. I thought he was a good Batman for the Batman they made for that movie, and I thought his fight sequence in that warehouse where he saves Martha Kent was the best Batman action I've ever seen on screen, like the best authentic Batman fight I've ever seen on screen. So to me, I would like them to if he's going to leave Batman, I would like them to give him a graceful exit. He deserves it. He did a nice work with that. So we'll see what happens with that. All right, then we had a Women Who Kick Ass panel. There was like a great interview with Charlize Theron. She was great. So much. She's just an interesting woman all around. Interesting person, interesting actress all around, and so many things to say. So many fantastic points of views on the world and on why she wanted to do Atomic Blonde. That was the focus. Why do you want to do Atomic Blonde? What inspired you to do Atomic Blonde? What was the point of Atomic Blonde? And she really went into it. Like, she talked a lot about how Atomic Blonde, she wanted to create a female spy movie where the female was not, the woman was not beholden or into this situation, didn't get into this situation because of a child or because of a failed relationship or the death of a husband or a family situation. She just wanted to be, she's just a spy. Just like John Wick was just John Wick. He didn't, yes, he had his wife and whatever, but he was a hardcore assassin before he met his wife. His wife's the one who got him out of being the assassin. Of course, her death and the subsequent death of the puppy brings him back into the life, but he was already this before. And so Charlize said that she really wanted to create a new kind of female spy who was not dependent on a child dying or a husband dying or any of that stuff. So that was so interesting to hear her talk about it, because I was like, oh yeah, well that's actually kind of true. As I was looking back through the history of the films that I've seen with female spies as lead or female assassins, whatever you want to say, I hadn't seen one like this. I hadn't seen one with this kind of premise, So she had a lot of powerful things to say, a lot of important things to say, and I really enjoyed her. And she's just seems so down to earth and straightforward without sacrificing her belief in the things that she believes in. I think that's really important, to be strong in what you believe, but you don't have to be put on airs or take offense so quickly. That's the thing that's so great about her. She was just down to earth and straightforward about everything. And it was so much fun to spend time with her and listen to that interview, which went about an hour. Then the Stranger Things people came on and did their Stranger Things panel, which is so great with Patton Oswalt narrating that. That was enjoyable. And then Westworld came on with I forget, Reggie Watts, and that was kind of a letdown. I felt like Reggie's a funny guy. I enjoy his work, and I've seen, obviously he's James Corden's band guy. I felt he was way too chill for Westworld, and I felt like because the show is so serious and so self-involved that I think you need to have a moderator who like brings out the joy of that show or the makes fun of it or the humor of it without disrespecting it. And I felt like Reggie didn't quite do that. He put on this weird kind of Southern accent or Western. It just didn't really work for what they were trying to do. That's my opinion. Just didn't really work. And then we got to Marvel, and Marvel was awesome. Just absolutely awesome. So many great experiences with Thor Ragnarok. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed that Taika Waititi panel there. As the director, Chris Hemsworth, Cate Blanchett, Carl Urban. So many great and interesting people were involved in that panel, and that was so much fun to listen to them talk about Thor and their influences for doing the film. And and it was also fun and of course Tom Hiddleston came out. It was so much fun to see the extra footage that they had and see the trailer before everybody else saw the trailer and explore all that, and then Black Panther came out. And Black Panther was super intense and fantastic and so much fun. You can tell they showed some extra footage. They showed this footage of this awesome fight scene. You'll see it in the trailer. There's the casino fight scene, but this was the extended casino fight scene. They showed the whole thing, and that was just amazing. Ryan Coogler has such a great possible film on his hand, like another cultural touchstone on the heels of Wonder Woman. And so this, to me, feels like another powerful step forward for us as an inclusive geek world society that we claim to be. We have to have these really well done superhero films that focus on female-led superheroes. They focus on African-American leads, or African leads in this case with Wakanda. These kinds of things are really important to show that we are an inclusive geek culture, an inclusive geek society or nerd culture. It's really important to have these things, It's not about just casting a person of color or a gender just to cast them. It's about cast them in the right project and letting that project shine through their talents. And you can see that happening all over Black Panther. All right, I'm picking this up. I am now at work, so taking a break from one of my sets, and I'm sitting here in the quietest room I could find to finish up the podcast. And it's to talk about the Marvel panel. It was so amazing to experience, as I said, the Thor Ragnarok stuff, to see the amazing work and comedy that's going to be in this film. And the graphic, and you're seeing the CGI that they do on the Hulk, and when they have that final end moment between him and Thor, where they're talking about fire, like it's just brilliantly funny. You can tell that Taika Waititi was a perfect choice for this as a director for this particular installment of the Thor franchise. It's going to be very funny. The rock creature, which we saw an extended scene with the rock creature, is super funny. Based on, I think he said these large bodyguards that are in New Zealand or in Australia, that are like the size of mountains, but they have these like really deep, really like high-pitched voices. Hey, how are you? How are you doing? Things of that nature. And so it was very funny to see that come to life and see the scene play out with Thor and that guy. And Tessa Thompson is just fantastic. I think she's going to be great as Valkyrie. And so it's going to be a lot of fun to see the film. And of course, Black Panther, as I mentioned, is going to be it just looks like it's going to be off the charts. so powerful, and the reaction from the cast. Like you know, I'm a person of color. I'm a minority. I'm Latino, and so for me, those kinds of things, when you see people getting so excited about finally being represented on film, it matters. It's important. You know, I'm not trying to be like, you know, people go, oh, social justice warrior. That's not what this is about. It's more about, you know, giving people an opportunity to connect with people that look like themselves. You know, the white majority in this country, in the world, has numerous superheroes to choose from. You know, they can throw away superheroes that they don't want to even connect to. And so I think it's important to have a superhero like Black Panther, like Wonder Woman, for women to connect to, for African Americans, for Africans, for people who are black all over the world to connect to, both male and female, to understand. And of course, the Dora Milaje, like all of that is going to be great. I look forward to seeing what they do with the film, and Coogler just looks like the right guy for this kind of thing. You know, if you've seen Fruitvale Station, you've seen Creed, it just makes sense. And we moved into the Avengers stuff. Like, they were just about to walk off the stage, and then, of course, you know, Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Hemsworth and I think Tom Hiddleston and Mark Ruffalo stopped the Kevin Feige from walking off the stage and said, let's show the Avengers Infinity War footage they had shown at D23. So they showed that footage, and it was amazing. Like, this was otherworldly stuff, like another planet. It was so mind-blowing to watch this, because like, you're watching DC earlier in the day and you're just like, okay, Wonder Woman's great. You know, people have their feelings about Batman vs. Superman, Man of Steel as well. Suicide Squad is just an abomination, but I didn't like Batman vs. Superman, but I liked Man of Steel. So for me, they're batting 500, 2 out of 4, right? But they are trying to desperately string 2 or 3 films together so they can build to what they want to get to, which is Justice League, right? Of course, Justice League is going to come before any of these other films come out, and hopefully will, you know, kind of set people back into being excited about DC. But Marvel itself is just literally on another planet with their Infinity War stuff, because they've been building towards this particular film since the first Iron Man. And that should let you know how far out they mapped this thing. And so to see it all come to fruition in this 4.5 minute footage that they showed us was just insane. Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Thor, Iron Man, the Guardians, and of course Thanos. I mean, Thanos just comes out of this black dust, and he is so incredibly powerful. He destroys a moon and uses the flying pieces of the moon and the energy of the destruction of the moon to reinforce his punch of whoever he's punching in that sequence. You see it like off frame. You see him punch, but you don't see who he's punching. And you just hear that voiceover from Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man talking about how we are going to, if we have to fight together, and if we lose, we'll lose together. If we die, we'll die together. That kind of thing, which really gives you that vibe that some of these Marvel characters are going to die. And so you can argue DC all day long if you want, but you cannot deny Marvel. You cannot deny that Marvel has gotten to a place where they feel they can actually kill off some of their actors who are playing these parts. It doesn't mean the parts will die, like Iron Man won't die or Captain America won't die, but other people might take up the mantle. And that's how far ahead they are of DC. DC would never think of actually, of course, the Superman stuff. Yes, Superman dies at the Batman, but that was more like shoehorned in. It wasn't built up. Do you know what I'm saying? Whereas Marvel has been building up to this for almost 10 years to get to this point. So it's super exciting to see the footage, and then I wonder how this is all going to turn out, especially because it's broken up into 2 parts. So we'll see how it all plays out. So I look forward to it, like, greatly. Look forward to seeing what they will create with that. And it just left me feeling so excited about what's going to happen with that. And then Sunday, the next day, Saturday I just went home and back to the hotel room rather than hung out with Shannon. We just kind of chilled out. Like, we were burnt out. We could have gone to Screen Junkies party. We could have tried to sneak in the EW party and a couple other parties, but we were just so burnt out from the con that we just chilled out and read comics and caught up with each other and our experiences. And then the next day, we had our traditional Omni breakfast. We always go to the Omni Hotel and have brunch, the four of us. We had a really great time having some interesting discussions between the four of us there. And then I stayed longer because I wanted to go to the Doctor Who panel because I wanted to say goodbye to Peter Capaldi. And that was a great experience as well. What an awesome panel with Stephen Moffat and Peter Capaldi and Matt Lucas and the actress, I'm sorry, the name escapes me now, who played Bill this past season. And, of course, Michelle Gomez as the Master. And Mark Gatiss. They were all there. And it was so great to hear them talk about Doctor Who for an hour and hear Stephen Moffat kind of regale us with stories of what he did with the seasons that he worked on, and Capaldi to kind of say goodbye to the character of Doctor Who for him, and Bill to say goodbye to her character. And I got emotional. I'm not gonna lie. I was there with my friends Mark Sloan and Mike Fox, and we were just sitting there, and we got a bit emotional, near the 3/4 mark of the panel, because it just was, I've grown to love Capaldi a lot. He was my first Doctor. Like I didn't watch the Tennant or Dave or Matt Smith stuff from the beginning. Capaldi was the one that I watched from the beginning, and he was always my favorite. So it's a shame to say goodbye to that. Now and let go of that. So, but it was a great panel to experience, a lot of fun to experience that and enjoy those things, And so, if you get a chance to go to Comic-Con, I can't encourage you enough to go if you can go. It's a great experience, and you'll have a great time. And yes, it's a bit crazy with all the people. It's a bit too much with all the traffic and security and all that jazz, but you'll have some life-changing experiences with some of your heroes or with some of your favorite creators, directors, producers, writers, actors, whatever. And sometimes you meet people who you see on YouTube, and you have a great interaction with them as well. So I can't do anything but recommend that to you all. All right, I think that's good for this week on the Outlaw Nation podcast. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I'll come to you with something more next week, and we'll see what more we can talk about and get into there. But please follow me at The Rocha Says, ROCHA, on Twitter and on Instagram. And, of course, the Cinephiles, Cine-Files, on iTunes, on Stitcher, on YouTube as well. Leave us comments, follow us, subscribe, all that jazz. And, of course, the Top 10 show is back. That's on the Schmoes No Plus podcast channel, this particular channel that you're listening to now. Please download us every week. Help keep the show going. Help keep the show being supportive. We'll figure out a Patreon situation here in a little bit, so that'll be great for those of you who've been requesting one. And, of course, every Friday on Collider Movie Talk, you catch me talking about stuff going on there. So it's a great time. So thanks, everybody, for listening this week. I hope you don't mind this truncated version of the Outlaw Nation podcast, but I promise next week I'll have more. I'll have a special guest on to talk some more stuff that's going on in the world. And Matt Nost and I are overdue for an NBA conversation, so that may happen next week as well. So, all right, thanks, everybody, so much for listening, and we will see you all next time on the Outlaw Nation podcast here on the Schmoes No Plus podcast channel.